to the Prophecy Club. We're going to continue talking with Rob Skiba today, as he is going to be our speaker this month at the Prophecy Club. He's going to be speaking July 20th, 2 to 5 p.m. on Mythology, UFOs, and Strong Delusion, and 7 to 10:30 p.m. on the Rise of Babylon, 322, Tetrads, and the Time of Jacob's Trouble. Then the next morning, Sunday morning, at 9:30, Spirit of Prophecy Church on 2045, the year man becomes immortal. So, Rob, tell us more about what you're going to talk on.
In the last program, we talked about the Tower of Babel and Nimrod and how he, at the confounding of the languages, became known by many other names in mythology. And I'll just throw out a few of them. Gilgamesh, Baal, Melkart, Adonis, Eshmun, Dumuzi, Dionysus, Bacchus, Orion, Mithra, Apollo, Osiris. Those are just a few. Some people who are not from a Christian worldview, in fact, who are anti-Christian worldview, have put out videos like Zeitgeist suggesting that Jesus was just one of a number of other dying and resurrecting sun gods born on December 25th. And I have to say that Christians have to take responsibility for that because, first of all, Jesus was not born on December 25th, but we've allowed ourselves to believe that and promoted that and everything else such that people who do their research can make the connection that this so-called Jesus on December 25th is just another one of these guys that really relate to Nimrod. And that's why they're pointing out that the whole thing's a fraud. Well, if Christians were actually diligent in studying their Bible, they would know that that is not true, that Jesus was not born on December 25th. He's not just one of another dying and resurrecting sun god. He is the son of the one true God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who came to wage war against all these other gods and to destroy the works of the devil. So, but we have to go back and look at this stuff because there is a spirit of Antichrist, which I suggest goes directly back to Nimrod and ancient Babylon, where all the world mystery religions really start, and the various false religions come out of Babylon. And when I was studying these various different incarnations, if you will, of Nimrod, what I found very interesting is that a lot of them are depicted exactly the same way. Scripture defines Nimrod as the mighty hunter. You know, he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Well, if you look at a statue of Gilgamesh, there's a famous depiction of him as a giant holding a lion under his arm. You know, so assuming that's a full-grown lion, which it appears to be, that's a really big guy, you know, standing there holding this lion, you know, and he's got a club in his hand. So you see him with a lion in one hand and a club in the other. Well, Orion is known as the great constellation, the mighty hunter of the sky, is depicted, if you draw the outline, as a dude with a club in one hand and a lion in the other. Baal, ancient depictions of the Canaanite god Baal, show him virtually in the exact same pose as Orion, with a club in one hand, but with a reed in the other, or branch in the other. And that's because he became known as the god of war and agriculture. And the Lord actually woke me up one morning, and he does this a lot, where I'll just wake up with a name or phrase in my head, and it's like screaming in my head, and that's basically going to be my assignment for the day. I'm like, okay, Lord, okay, well, I got to figure out what this means. And so one morning I woke up with the word or the name Ningirsu in my head. I'm like, Ningirsu? What is Ningirsu? I don't know what Ningirsu was, so I spent the day looking it up. And come to find out that Ningirsu was an earlier Sumerian, whatever, name for the Akkadian Ninurta, who was the god of war and agriculture in that society. Well, Ninurta is yet another name for Nimrod. It was just a different cultures, the way they looked at Nimrod, who was the mighty hunter. Well, so we might think of Nimrod as the god of war and agriculture. But what's interesting is later, as these mythologies developed and got embellished, you see that some of these gods got split, where their characteristics would go to one god or remain with one, and another characteristic go to a different god. Like, for instance, in the Greek mythology, you have two different gods for the god of agriculture and the god of war. You have the god of war as a masculine character in Ares, and in the feminine, you have Ceres, god of agriculture. Well, what God was showing me is how our nation is still worshiping these gods. And I had just taken a trip to Washington, D.C., been there many times in my life. I grew up in the Northeast, used to go there on field trips and stuff. But, you know, to use coin a phrase from the movie The Matrix, once you take the red pill, you see things differently, you know. Been sucking on the blue pill my whole life, so I had never understood what I was looking at. When you take the red pill, so to speak, your eyes are open and you see things. Like when you go to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., you see the god of agriculture and the god of war. The god of Mars is right to the right of the main entrance of the Capitol building is the statue of the god of war, Mars. You want to know why our nation has been at war since its founding with the Revolutionary War? It's because that's the god, one of the gods we're serving. And on the left side of the entrance of the Capitol building is Sirius, the god of agriculture. Well, these two gods, these two characteristics were once merged together in Ninurta/Ningirsu/Nimrod. So it's showing right in the own iconography of our own nation, which I'll be talking about in the talks that we're going to do there on the 20th and the 21st, is how our nation is still worshiping these gods as a nation. And Columbia, which is perched on the roof of the Capitol building, is Ishtar, Isis, Semiramis, the half-sister/wife/mother of Nimrod, Semiramis. So it's all tied together. In the ancient world, the depictions of Nimrod really reveal that we're talking about the same guy, because a lot of the depictions are virtually identical, even though you're referring to different gods from different cultures. And so other people like to think, they look at the Sumerian text, for instance, an Epic of Gilgamesh and the Enuma Elish and some of the creation epics and stuff like that, and then they look at the Bible and they say, well, Moses just copied the creation epics of the Sumerians. No, I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's true at all. I actually believe that Nimrod had a go for a little while where he was allowed by God's sovereignty to tell the story his way, and that it emerged through all of these tales and myths of creation that preceded the Torah, and it was essentially written from the devil's point of view through people like Nimrod and his wife. But then about 800 years after the flood or so, during the time of the Exodus, God said, okay, I've got myself a nation here. And this is interesting, too, is that many scholars believe that at the Tower of Babel, God confounded the languages into 70, that there were 70 different languages that came out of the Tower of Babel, 70 different people groups that went out. One of those people groups was Eber, who was the father or ancestor of Abraham, through which God decided to do all of his work that we see in the Bible. So God says, okay, I'm gonna pick this guy, and I'm going to work through his seed. And then we get Isaac and then Jacob. And, of course, we get the 12 tribes and everything, and we know the story. And so through that line, we end up with Moses. And that's where God says, okay, time to set the record straight. That's the way I look at it. Yeah, there have been a lot of other creation epics that have been written and stories, but those are twisted, distorted, and full of lies. So tell you what, Moses, grab a chisel, grab a rock, grab a pen, grab a parchment, whatever the case may be, sit down, let me tell you what really happened. In the beginning. And I would actually suggest that the Torah, at least vast amounts of it, was dictated by God to Moses. And one of the reasons I believe that is because it is so amazingly intricate with unbelievable detail and codes and things, just the fact that like every seventh letter spells out Torah, just all kinds of stuff. I don't want to get on a rabbit trail on that, but I really believe that the Torah was dictated by God to Moses. I mean, he spent several times up on the mountain with God, 40 days at a time, It didn't take him that long to receive 10 commandments. So I believe God was setting the record straight with the 5 books of Moses. But those other texts are still in existence, and those other texts are causing people to have a lot of confusion even to this day. And we see that Mystery Babylon, the mother of all harlots, it's interesting that fallen angels, there's a quote from the Recognitions of Clement, where he says, fallen angels taught men the use of magical incantations that would force demons to obey man. This became ingrained into the Egyptians, Persians, and Babylonians. Nimrod, called Ninus by the Greeks, was handed this knowledge, and by it caused men to go away from the worship of God and go into diverse and erratic superstitions, and they began to be governed by the signs in the stars and the motions of the planets. So he's showing how the false religions got started and how things like astrology got started and how that all goes back to ancient Babylon and the mystery religions and stuff like that, which I believe is actually a counterfeit. When you think of astrology, God said in Genesis that he put the stars and the sun and the moon in the sky to be for signs and for seasons and times and all that. The Bible talks about the Mazzaroth. I believe that there is a legitimate way of looking at these signs in the heavens from a biblical worldview, and that astrology is a counterfeit of that. And a lot of times when I see a counterfeit, my thing is like, well, you don't make counterfeits of $6 bills, because there's no such thing. you make counterfeits of $100 bills. Well, because there's a real thing, and you make counterfeits of something of value. You don't make counterfeit $1 bills, you make counterfeit $100 bills, So when I see things like astrology and some of those things like that, I realize and recognize that that is a counterfeit, which causes me to try to go find the real. I want to go find what the real thing is that this stuff is based on. But most of these counterfeits go directly back to Nimrod and ancient Babylon. They're finding themselves being used even to this day. And a lot of these practices are still happening even to this day, especially with regard to our presidents thinking of themselves as gods. What? What did I just say? Do our presidents think of themselves as gods? I'm going to suggest that they do. The ancient pharaohs thought of themselves as gods. We know that. The ancient emperors of the world thought of themselves as gods. Kings thought of themselves as gods. The Caesars thought of themselves as gods. What about our presidents? Do they think of themselves as gods? I'm going to suggest that they do. Or at the very least, the people who put them into power do. And that's not the American people, I would also suggest, contrary to what some may believe. All of these presidents are all related to each other. Interestingly enough, all 44 of these guys can be traced back to one guy, King John Lackland, King of England, signer of the Magna Carta in the 1200s. So, and what's interesting about this guy is he created a parade every year. It's called the Lord Mayor Parade, which happens even to this day, where they march these two giants through the streets of the UK called Gog and Magog. And we'll talk a little bit about this as well, that I believe Gog and Magog are giants, and they're of the lineage of Japheth. Well, so you got these two giants, Gog and Magog. Interestingly enough, the Great Wall of China, I went to visit China, I did a missionary trip there, and got the privilege of standing on the Great Wall of China in 2006. Come to find out that it was originally known as the Ramparts of Magog. When you stand on this thing, you realize how massive it is.
We'll be right back after this message. In the Rob Skiba gift offer, his first DVD is Mythology, UFOs, and the Coming Great Deception. Topics are the origin of mythology and the gods, Sumerian, Egyptian, and Greek pantheons, the Coming Great Deception, UFOs and aliens, Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, interdimensional portals, transhumanism and the quest to be like gods, giants and hybrids, paganism in Washington, D.C., America's date with destiny, and in Babylon Rising, 322 tetrads in the time of Jacob's trouble. The topics are the signs in the heavens, Babylon in the last days, New World Order conspiracies, secret societies, and the occult's obsession with the numbers 322, tetrads, or blood red moons, in the eclipses in the days ahead, Jesus coming as a thief in the night, the feasts of God and how they relate to the last days, the tribulation survival plan, and 2045, the year man becomes immortal. Topics will be Genesis 6 Nephilim, hybrid humans, war with hybrids, hybrids among us, the injection of immortality. All 3 DVDs valued at $90, available for a gift of just $50 at prophecyclub.com. And Rob will be speaking Saturday afternoon, July the 20th from 2 to 5 p.m. and 7 to 10:30 p.m. and then Sunday morning beginning at 9:30 on those 3 DVDs. And that's on the corner of Park and K in Plano, 2540 K Avenue in Plano. I debated Daryl Dumas for 3 hours, and I used 308 scriptures to show you that when the Bible says that the Lord descends from heaven with a shout, voice, trump, and dead rises, all these are describing that Jesus burns the tares and sinners at the 7th trumpet when all dead rise all the way back to Adam. Then we meet the Lord of the year, and the angels rapture us to our mansions. Perhaps for the first time, without doubt, you will finally see that the pre, mid, and pre-wrath rapture theories are wrong. You will see scriptural proof that the post-trib rapture is accurate. This DVD may save your salvation. It will help you to never deny Jesus. It's the Rapture Debate offer at 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. That's 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. This may help you keep your salvation. The Prophecy Club is having a summer blowout. You get 6 DVDs of your choice valued at $180 for a gift of $100. Not available on the internet. You got to call 785-266-1112 to place your order. That's 6 Prophecy Club DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112. Get yourself informed. Don't let the tricks of the devil deceive you. Get 6 DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112. And now, back to the program.
When you stand on this thing, you realize how massive it is. It's huge. It's massive overkill if all you're trying to do is keep out 6-foot-tall invaders. But if you realize that they were trying to keep out giants, well, that called Gog and Magog, or the tribes that came from them, then all of a sudden the Great Wall of China makes a lot more sense. So, we see this happening. There are remnants of these ideas that giants are around in virtually every culture, and these giants of Gog and Magog were basically honored by King John Lackland in the creation of the Lord Mayor Parade, and all of our presidents just so happen to be related to this one guy. And why? Well, I believe there is a bloodline that can be traced probably all the way back to Nimrod that has been in power in various cultures all around the world ever since, and specifically the blue bloods of the European royalty right down to our own presidents, who, when you look at somebody like George Washington, after he died, they had a government-commissioned statue made of him that depicts George Washington seated in the pose of Baphomet, interestingly enough, but also in the same pose as the statue of Zeus from one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Temple of Zeus. They deified George to look like Zeus. And then they paint this painting in the Capitol. When they built the Capitol building, they put this painting in the Capitol dome called the Apotheosis of George Washington. Well, apotheosis means ascension into godhood, the deification of a man to a god. And we're taught that this is a Judeo-Christian nation with Judeo-Christian founding and all that. I'm going to suggest that that's not true. Pilgrims and Puritans, sure, but they're not the ones who built our government and established everything in Washington, D.C. Deists did, and people like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, all these guys were deists, and they were Freemasons, and they were part of the Hellfire Club and all stuff like that. They're the ones that built these buildings and created these things. And when you think of the apotheosis of George Washington, it supposedly depicts George in heaven as a god, we would say, well, if it's a Christian worldview, shouldn't we see like biblical characters there, like Jesus maybe, or Abraham, or Moses, or the apostles? No, that's not what we see there. We see Vulcan there, we see Minerva there, we see Mercury there, and the messenger of the gods and our founding fathers seated at their feet taking notes in our Christian-founded country, in the womb of Isis, underneath the statue that's on the Capitol Dome of Columbia, who is Ishtar Isis Semiramis. I mean, this whole nation is loaded with depiction of pagan gods and the deification of our own presidents as these gods. You go to the Lincoln Memorial. I mean, just look at that Parthenon there. It looks exactly like something you would have seen in ancient Greece, where you got this massive statue of a bearded god seated on a throne, Abraham Lincoln. And after he died, pictures of him ascending into heaven were created, called the Apotheosis of Abraham Lincoln. And to take it to the mystery schools, when a president dies, because when I was in D.C., I asked the tour guide, I said, when was this painting done, this Apotheosis of George Washington? She said, 1865. I said, whoa, wait a minute, wasn't that the same year Abraham Lincoln died? And she said, yeah, as a matter of fact, he was the first president to undergo the lying in state ceremony. I said, what's that? That's when a president dies, they bring his casket, his body, in underneath what in the mystery school religion would be considered the womb of Isis, underneath the painting of the Apotheosis of George Washington, and they leave the body there for a while. They leave it there for the sheeple of America to go look at the president and give their respects, but what's really taking place there is an occult ritual that goes directly back to some of the ancient, like Egyptian schools of thought with Osiris, when he died, who is also a representation of Nimrod, went into the underworld. Well, Isis created a phallic symbol, which we now know as the obelisk, to impregnate herself. When Osiris's body was hacked into 14 pieces, only 13 were found. The 14th piece was missing, so she created something to represent it, his phallus, and used it somehow to impregnate herself and gave birth to Horus, who is supposedly the reincarnation of Osiris. So basically Horus is to be depicted as Osiris in the living world, while Osiris is in the underworld. That traces directly back to the Sumerians and the Babylonians with Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, which we see in our Bible. in Ezekiel chapter 8, when God takes the prophet through the temple and shows the prophet all this worship that's going on and the weeping for Tammuz, which is the reincarnation of Nimrod. So our presidents are doing the same thing. They bring the body in there, and in death, the president goes down into the underworld, and a new president is inaugurated as essentially the Horus, Tammuz, if you will, of our country. And so all these nations are still practicing these same ideas that go directly back to Nimrod and ancient Babylon. In fact, we see in Ecclesiastes 1:9, it says, what has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. We see right there in the scriptures that there's nothing new under the sun. What the practices of old will be the same thing that we're going to see today. And in fact, when you look at Obama, our current president, when he was running for office, it seemed like every time that somebody took a picture of him, they always positioned him such that there was something circular behind his head. So the effect was that he looked like a Messiah figure from the old paintings and stained glass windows that we see, in Catholic churches and stuff like that, where he's depicted as a saint or as a Messiah. And I would suggest some would see him as a god. A lot of people, even in Time magazine, talks about him as a god and as a Messiah. In fact, had pictures of him as Shiva, interestingly enough, the same god depicted in front of CERN, which is the god of destruction, but they had Obama with multiple arms posed in the same fashion as Shiva. So there's a strange fascination with our current president. When he went to Cairo, Egypt in 2000, I think it was 9, the Egyptians made all these plaques calling him the new Tutankhamun of the world. Obama, the new Tutankhamun of the world. Well, Tutankhamun, King Tut, as many people know him, was a son of Akhenaten, who had created a monotheistic religion in Egypt where there was the worship of only one god. But King Tut undid everything his father did and was responsible for bringing back the worship of the old gods and ushering in the New Kingdom dynasty. So a lot of people think Obama's the Antichrist. I personally do not. But I would suggest that he is, in fact, acting like a John the Baptist type character for the Antichrist in the sense that King Tut did, that he is ushering in the worship of the old gods. And he has his acceptance speech. When he finally got his acceptance speech with the Democratic Party in Denver, Colorado, he has his acceptance speech in front of the seat of Satan of Revelation chapter 2. The seat of Satan was the altar of Zeus, pagan god, right? Altar of Zeus was the seat of Satan in Pergamum, which was relocated to Berlin. He was inspired by it, and it did a big speech there under Nike, the goddess of victory. And then when he has his acceptance speech, he has a replica made of the seat of Satan at the Democratic Convention. So, yeah, and then he goes, in 2009, he goes to receive his so-called Nobel Peace Prize in Norway, and the Norway spiral shows up. Is this a portal? Is this a gateway through which the ancient gods are coming? Is he living up to his title that the Egyptians gave him, the one who's going to usher in the old gods? I don't know, but we're going to talk a lot about it on the 20th, Saturday the 20th, so you definitely want to check that out.
Well, folks, let me encourage you to grab your pencil and do a couple of things. One is you want to make certain you come to these meetings on July 20th and also on 21st. Matter of fact, he's going to be speaking on Mythology, UFOs, and Strong Delusion Saturday, July 20th from 2 to 5 p.m. Then that evening from 7 to 10:30, he's going to be speaking on The Rise of Babylon, 322, Tetrads in the Time of Jacob's Trouble. Then, Sunday morning at 9:30, he's going to be speaking on the year 245, year 2045, the year man becomes immortal, talking about how they're working toward immortality. So Rob Skiba's got a lot of fascinating, amazing information coming up, and there is a gift offer going along. As a matter of fact, we put together 2 of his DVDs. The first one is Mythology, UFOs, Strong Delusion for a gift of $30, and then the second one, The Rise of Babylon, 322, Tetrads and the Time of Jacob's Trouble, $30, both of them for a gift of $40. Call 785-266-1112 or go to prophecyclub.com. That's prophecyclub.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers, and thank you for your gifts of support. God bless. Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. The Prophecy Club is having a summer blowout. You get 6 DVDs of your choice valued at $180 for a gift of $100. Not available on the internet. You got to call 785-266-1112 to place your order. That's 6 Prophecy Club DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112. Get yourself informed. Don't let the tricks of the devil deceive you. Get 6 DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112. In the Rob Skiba gift offer, his first DVD is Mythology, UFOs, and the Coming Great Deception. Topics are the origin of mythology and the gods, Sumerian, Egyptian, and Greek pantheons, the Coming Great Deception, UFOs and aliens, Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, interdimensional portals, transhumanism and the quest to be like gods, giants and hybrids, paganism in Washington, D.C., America's date with destiny, and in Babylon Rising, 322 tetrads in the time of Jacob's trouble. The topics are the signs in the heavens, Babylon in the last days, New World Order conspiracies, secret societies, and the occult's obsession with the numbers 322, tetrads, or blood red moons in the eclipses in the days ahead, Jesus coming as a thief in the night, the feasts of God and how they relate to the last days, the tribulation survival plan, and 2045, the year man becomes immortal. Topics will be Genesis 6 Nephilim, hybrid humans, war with hybrids, hybrids among us, the injection of immortality. All 3 DVDs valued at $90, available for a gift of just $50 at prophecyclub.com. And Rob will be speaking Saturday afternoon, July the 20th from 2 to 5 p.m. and 7 to 10:30 p.m. and then Sunday morning beginning at 9:30 on those 3 DVDs. And that's on the corner of Park and K in Plano, 2540 K Avenue in Plano. I debated Daryl Dumas for 3 hours, and I used 308 scriptures to show you that when the Bible says that the Lord descends from heaven with a shout, voice, trump, and dead rises, all these are describing that Jesus burns the tares and sinners at the 7th trumpet when all dead rise all the way back to Adam. Then we meet the Lord of the air, and the angels rapture us to our mansions. Perhaps for the first time, without doubt, you will finally see that the pre, mid, and pre-wrath rapture theories are wrong. You will see scriptural proof that the post-trib rapture is accurate. This DVD may save your salvation. It will help you to never deny Jesus. It's the Rapture Debate offer at 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. That's 785-266-1112 or prophecyclub.com. This may help you keep your salvation. Lindsey Williams has done it again. He's come out with another awesome DVD, this one entitled Health Tips from the Elite. Did you know that no president of the United States has ever died from cancer? Why? What do they know that you don't? President Ronald Reagan was diagnosed with colon cancer when he was president. He imported a substance that was illegal to be used in the United States at the time. He never had a reoccurrence. There is no reason to suffer from cancer, heart disease, diabetes, chronic fatigue syndrome, multiple sclerosis, hepatitis C, hormonal imbalance, vascular disease, immunological imbalance. It's all in the new DVD, Health Tips from the Elite, not available on the internet. You gotta call 785-266-1112. That's 785-266-1112. Health Tips from the Elite. The Prophecy Club is having a summer blowout. You get 6 DVDs of your choice valued at $180 for a gift of $100. Not available on the internet. You gotta call 785-266-1112 to place your order. That's 6 Prophecy Club DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112. Get yourself informed. Don't let the tricks of the devil deceive you. Get 6 DVDs for a gift of $100. Call 785-266-1112. There are 30 scriptures in the Bible which say in the last days massive amounts of oil will be discovered in Israel, and we believe we've been given the directive to use this prophesied oil and gas to fund worldwide soul winning. If you have questions about our vision, call 877-OIL-ISRAEL or 877-645-4772.